Hi and welcome to Maths class. Today we're looking at patterns on the Cartesian plane. So we're going to learn to plot points by hand on a Cartesian plane. We're going to practice drawing the Cartesian plane and we're going to look for patterns after we've plotted those points. So I've got an example that we're going to learn this together. And so what you're given is, this is called a table of values. We've met this before, where we know we have a list of x values, and you can see that x starts at -2 and goes to -1, 0, 1, 2, and then y goes from -2 to 0, 2, 4, 6. But what we have there is a list of coordinate pairs. These all go together. For example, right here, this 1 goes with this 4. So that's actually a pair of numbers that go together. So if I wanted to list all my coordinate pairs, this is what it's going to look like. I'm going to have -2, -2. That's the first one. Then here I've got x is -1 and y is 0. So -1, 0. The next one is x is 0 and y is 2. So 0, 2. The next one is the one I've circled, that's 1, 4. So each time the x value goes first and the y value goes second. And my last one is 2, 6. So I've just answered the first question, list all the coordinates. All right, now my second question is B, plot the points on a number line. Oh, that's supposed to say on a number plane. We can't plot points on a number line, we can only plot numbers on a number line. So I haven't got a plane drawn, so I'm going to draw it, and maybe you can draw it with me or you can pause it, but I'm going to keep the camera rolling while I draw it and I'll talk through what I'm thinking about. Now, when I go up and down, I know that my y values go from -2 up to +6. So that's a difference of 8. So I'm going to need at least 8 of these centimetre squares. You should be trying to use grid paper if you have any. So I'm going to use my ruler to help me to make sure that I get 8 of these squares. And then when I go across, I need to go from -2 to 2, but I need this to be, I'm just going to mark this in, this has to be -2, which means this is -1, which means my 0 line, oops, you can't see that, my apologies. That's -2, that's -1, my 0 line is here. So, oops. That's what I'm going to need right there. Now I put arrows on both sides, and I'm going to mark little lines on each of the grid lines, and I'm going to label those with the numbers. So from -2 up to -1, that one's 0. I don't need to mark that, it's the origin, but what I can do is just put a little circle around the origin, and then I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now a few things to notice. All the spaces are equal. This is especially important if you don't have grid paper, to take notice of the fact that I'm not just putting these little marks in random places, because the distance, the real distance between 0 and 1 is 1, and the distance between 5 and 6 is also 1, it should show that on your vertical axis, that this distance is the same as this distance. Oh, you can't see that. That distance is the same as that distance, and so on. Same goes horizontally. I'll mark in my little tick lines, and this goes from -2 to -1, that's 0, then I've got 1 and 2. The last thing I want to do is label x and y. Don't forget to label x and y. You should make it a habit every time you draw a Cartesian plane to label x and y. There's one other thing I want to point out to you. The numbers on my x-axis are all written below the x-axis, and the number on the y-axis, the numbers are all written on the left side. All right, this is the way you have to do it. You can't just decide to put your numbers over on the other side or above the x-axis. It's got to be just that way. And now, using the skills we learnt last time, I'm going to plot all these points. -2, -2, so starting at 0, I use my x value to go to the left 2, and then my y value tells me to go down 2. That's my first point. Then I've got negative 1, 0. So I'm going to go to the left 1 because it's negative 1 and up 0, which means I don't go up at all, which means I'm sitting right on the x-axis. Then I've got 0, 2. So that means 0 means I don't go to the left or the right. I just go up 2. That brings me there. 1, 4 is the next one. So across 1 and up 4. And 2, 6, I go across 2 and up 6. And if I look at any one of these points, for example, this one, I can follow this vertical line to the x-axis. It tells me my x value is 2, and that's what I wanted. And I can also follow across to the y-axis. It tells me that I'm at a y value of 6, and that's what I wanted. So I can check them in that way. Okay, question C says use a ruler to connect the points, because something I notice here is that these points actually make a straight line. Now, if you don't use grid paper, your line might not be perfect, but if you've got grid paper, then you should have a perfectly straight line. And what we're going to do is join them up. Oh, I went a bit crooked there. Join them up with a line. Okay, just like that. Now, it's a straight line because of the kind of pattern we've got. And we're only going to be looking at straight line patterns. But my last question, D, is probably the trickiest one. Write the rule linking X and Y. Now, one of the tricks to doing this is to look for when I go across the Y axis. That's when X is 0. It happens when Y is 2. So it kind of means that in a way 2, if I ignore these negative numbers, 2 is like a starting point. So I go 2, then I go 4, and then I go 6. So let's just look at the positive numbers to try and help me find a pattern. Now it kind of looks like, because it's 2 and 4 and 6, these numbers are all multiples of 2. So it looks like I'm multiplying X by 2, but that's not right, because look, if I multiply X by 2, I don't get 2, I get 0. If I multiply this number by 2, I don't get 2 either. So what I'm going to do is I look first for this pattern. What am I going up by? I'm going up by 2's. And that gives me a clue that I'm going to have 2 times X. Every time I increase X by 1, I'm going to increase Y by 2. So if I increase this value by 1, then I have to double it to get what I get for Y. So what would it give me if I had 2x? Well, negative 2, double that, I get negative 4. Negative 1, double that, I get negative 2. 0, double that, I still get 0. Double 1 is 2, and double 2 is 4. So this row would be what I would have if my equation was y equals 2x. But that's not right. These don't match. Okay. In most patterns, there's a timesing part and there's an adding part. And I work out the timesing part by looking at this pattern, right? This is what I multiply by, and that's what I've multiplied by there. But if you look at all these numbers in this top row here and compare them to the numbers that I want, they're all too small. This is 2 more than 4. This is 2 more than 2. This is 2 more than 0. This is 2 more than negative 2. And this is 2 more than negative 4. So if I add 2 in this equation, it's actually going to work. Now let's double check it. Let's pick one of my X numbers. I'm going to pick 2. So 2 times 2 gives me 4, plus 2 gives me 6. And that is what I want my Y value to be. All right, let's pick a different X value because you can't just check it with 1. Let's check it with this one. X is 1. 2 times 1, that gives me 2. Plus 2 gives me 4. That is what I want here. Let's pick one of my negative numbers. Let's use negative 2. 2 times negative 2, oh, this is getting tricky. I'm going to have to write it down. If X is negative 2, I get 2 times negative 2 plus 2. And 2 times negative 2 is negative 4 plus 2, which equals negative 2. So 2 times negative 2 plus 2 equals negative 2. So when x is negative 2, y is also negative 2. And that is what I've got there. So that means this is the right equation. Okay. So that's one worked example of how I go about doing these. Now, not all the patterns are that complicated, but the steps are, we list the coordinates first. That's in order to help us do the plotting. Take extra care when you're drawing your axes. Plot the points. If it doesn't look like a straight line, you might have put one of the points in the wrong place. All right, so double check those if you don't get a straight line. Then you join it with a ruler, and then the hard part is trying to figure out what the equation is. But we've had a lot of practice of that already. So that is my video on patterns on the Cartesian plane.